Welcome to NAIFA's Advisor Today podcast series, where we focus on how financial advisors work, live, and give to their local communities and our greater financial services industry. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hi, everyone out there in NAIFA Nation. This is your co-host, Chris Gandy, and I'm here with my wonderful superstar co-host of Advisor Today's podcast, Suzanne Carawan. Hi, Suzanne.
Hey, everybody.
It's so good to see you. We're so close to Valentine's Day. So, if we don't tell you we love you, NAIFA Nation. We love Suzanne and all she does. So with that being said, we look forward to today's guest. But before we get going, Suzanne, who is our sponsor for today's podcast?
So today we're sponsored by Stonewood Financial. They're a new partner to NAIFA. They do a couple of things. They do a lot of training for advisors, and they do that around the idea a lot of times of legislative risk. So how do you take legislative risk, especially the tax challenges that should come, and increase your book of business with new top line growth? They've got great software to help you do that, training, seminars, etc. And we've partnered together with them, and I'm excited to announce they're actually going to deliver a pre-con workshop this year at Congressional Conference to all those in attendance, completely sponsored by NAIFA and given by Stonewood Financial. So we're really happy to partner with them. They're out of Louisville, Kentucky, but they've got some great synergies with NAIFA, and we are so happy to have them aboard.
Thanks, Suzanne. That's amazing. So new partnerships, those out there in NAIFA Nation want to connect, collaborate. We at NAIFA, we do that, and we look to promote each other along the way. With no further ado, Suzanne, would you please introduce our guest for today?
I'd be delighted to. So today we're delighted and so honored to have Glenn Crawford on with us. And so Glenn, you and I have known each other a couple of years now, I think, and he's one of my favorite, because we can talk football together, which we always like to do. And then Glenn is just an onion, and his life is an onion. He has so many layers to Glenn Crawford, and every time you talk to him, there's something new about him. He, especially coming up. And today, Chris, before you hopped on, I learned that today is Glenn's birthday. So we have birthday boy here with us as well, and I'm sure Glenn's going to talk about that. And on top of that, another topic to delve into is that Glenn is I'll let him talk about it, but I would note that we are really officially kicking off Black History Month. So I'm really delighted to have everybody on the call today to talk about this. And Glenn has something I think that uniquely ties in with Black History Month. A couple of things. Actually, we were going through the, hey, do you know who else was born on your birthday? And I was telling him I don't really have the best, most illustrious people. And then Glenn came right at me with he's got Abraham Lincoln and Charles Darwin and Bill Russell. So he's got a power birthday, which makes sense that Mr. Glenn Crawford would be born on that day too. So we're happy to have you, Glenn.
So no further ado, welcome Glenn to Advisor Today's podcast. You got our millions of NAIFA listeners that will repeat this numerous times. And I'll tell you, the gauntlet has been laid because there are people that have their podcasts played thousands and thousands of times. So you want to get yours on repeat. So with that being said, welcome.
Beautiful. Well, thanks for having me. I'm ready for the moment. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys.
So if you don't mind me asking, Glenn, you met Suzanne, and Suzanne is all things NAIFA. I mean, you talk about NAIFA, and Suzanne's there. Suzanne's marketing. She's doing this. She's doing this. So share with us how you met Suzanne, and share with us a little bit about your role in the industry and kind of how you got going in this wonderful industry of insurance and financial services.
Okay, so yes, I met Suzanne. We had an immediate connection. Her boys are big sports guys, and she's a big sports lady, and sports has played a very pivotal, important part in my life and my formation. And so we had that right off, from the beginning. I got into the industry. I was already in NAIFA before. So we do all have many layers. We all have a book inside of us. We all have movies inside of us. And one of my skill sets is coaching. So I coached my first youth sports team in high school, little track team. And then I coached, my adult life, 10 years, year round, running, basketball, baseball, football, soccer. And as many things I would come up with. Coach is like a sacred thing to me because you change people, inspire people, and nothing, more pure than someone who follows some of your advice or teachings on just pure blind faith. And so that is a tremendous banner or mantle to carry. One of my sayings is I would tell the kids, be a participant in life, not a spectator in life. And I espouse to that. Everything I say sometimes sounds a little corny, but I believe in it and I walk that walk. So I got into NAIFA. I got into the financial wellness, insurance, business at the tender young age of 57. I learned very early in my life. I played football in college for one of the, I believe, arguably the toughest college football coach who ever lived, Mr. Frank Cush. I'm a son of an Army colonel. I learned that you can do anything that you want to do if you set your mind to it, if you visualize it, affirm it, and you're willing to work for it hard enough. So I had a big IT practice that made the classic mistake a lot of business owners do, that we now work with, and that I had a whole lot of my energy, my investment in that business, and we made the mistake of not selling it when we should have sold it. And then we had an incident with a completely frivolous, baseless class action lawsuit, exempt versus non-exempt employee. Spent $1 million defending ourselves. We won, but the time, the energy, the effort, right before the Great Recession, crippled our firm. And I decided I don't want any more employees. I decided that I could depend on myself. And I was praying, affirming, visualizing for change in my life. And a young man introduced me to the business, and he said, this world that we live in, helping people financially, it's like your medical health, your physical health, your financial health, your spiritual health. This is equally as important as any of those things. And that no one had a perfect hand. Anyone could be someone you could help, and you can make a positive impact on people's lives. And that appealed to me. So again, at the tender young age of 57, I re-engineered myself out of IT. I was in IT most of my adult life in some fashion, into the world of financial wellness. And it started with insurance, which is certainly one of the pillars of the financial cornerstones.
So with that being said, let's go back even a little bit further. I'm sure, with the illustrious career you had in IT, I'm sure you had lots of options. But there was time where you had this pivot, and we've talked about pivoting and the importance of having the ability to do that. So one is, when you were in that moment thinking about reinventing yourself, can you walk us through, can you share with us some of the thoughts you had as you were trying to identify your next move?
That's an interesting question. And now that's, about 12 years ago, I just knew that I needed change, in my life. I knew that wasn't going to, be my life. So we were doing the IT firm that I had, and you're talking to a guy who was selling the first microcomputers back in the day with 2 floppy drives and a 7-inch screen. But fast forward to this business that we had, we were doing 65 mil. We were rolling, and we had an opportunity to sell. I wanted to sell. One of my partners didn't. Fortunately, I loved my partners then. I love them now. But in 2007, we were doing 65 mil. In 2012, we were doing 15 mil. So now my partners say, let's sell it. I said, great. They said, well, to make it look good, we won't take a paycheck. We paid everybody but ourselves for a year. And I just realized, 3 kids in private school, and I'm like, this, I'm a black Viking. I'm a burn the ship guy. Okay. But you do have to be decisive. I say it takes courage to change your life, no matter what endeavor, whether it's a personal relationship, a business, a new endeavor. It takes courage to change your life when your life isn't right. And I just simply knew that, or had the belief that, it just was not something that I could turn around. So I just had to look in my heart and say, and just start, really just being quiet, just visualizing for prosperity and abundance and meaning, in my life. And those were the core kind of thoughts. I have a wise man who gets sayings from everyone, but I had a real incredible experience in my life. And a guy, when I was in high school in El Paso, Texas, he used to actually tape my ankles, and he only did so for 1 year. And I was kind of the, top of the cart there. And we hadn't talked for years. And then he reached out to me, and he'd written a New York Times, Wall Street Journal bestseller book, and is a consultant to the biggest companies in the world. The book was called The Breakthrough Company, and it looked at similarities between different very successful companies. What was similar about them? How are they built? How did they run? He has a saying. He told me a story of a man who was one of the key personalities, at the time, used to entertain folks and have these big dinner parties, and they would talk about the meaning of life and why we're here and all this stuff. And he would pontificate. This gentleman would pontificate on his thoughts. And someone asked him, "Hey, what is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of happiness?" And he said, and everyone gasped and said, "Oh, now he's going to go on a long, hour-long diatribe about the meaning of happiness." And he said it very succinctly. He said, "Someone to love, something to believe in, and meaningful work." And so I was, that would be kind of the thought that I embraced. I didn't know what it was. I had no idea what it was. I didn't know if it would still be in the IT business. I didn't know if it would be starting a different business, a different industry. But, when I was introduced to this, to this business, that is certainly something that is meaningful, because the gratitude, the feeling that you get knowing that you help someone navigate this very important part of their life, where most people spend more time planning a vacation than they do plotting, what they're going to do when work becomes something optional in their life. I don't use the word retire. I said the goal should be to make work optional in your life. So anyway, it just came, and I started delving into it while I was still working essentially for free for the corporation, and found that I had an aptitude for it, and I had affinity for it, and that there was great opportunity, in it. I did study business when I was in college, so I had been exposed to the tenets and the principles of insurance then. In fact, I bought my first policy, Chris and Suzanne, on myself when I was 24. Long before I ever got married. One of the best things I did. By personal experience, I can tell people about the tenets of it.
So you started I don't think I knew this about you, Glenn. So you actually took the courage to start all over. You had a full career and you started completely over. Can you talk about that? Courage is not talked about enough. I'm glad that you brought up the topic of courage. People always give you credit when you've actually changed and it succeeded, but not the actual process of trying to make the change. Right. Most people try to tell you you're crazy, right? During that time, right. And you actually get a lot of negativity, but you somehow are able to keep that positivity and push through it and start completely over. And that's a great, what a great message. And so talk a little bit about that, about the fortitude for doing that piece of it.
Where the fortitude comes from is easy. Of course, I had great parents. So my dad was a colonel in the Army. And all the men that came to our house, they weren't only men of this category, but most of the men were Black, college-educated, confident, intelligent men who struck a striking, regal figure in their uniforms.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
people would salute my dad, on the base. Now I've encountered hostility every place that I've lived, but people would salute my dad, and my beautiful, beautiful mom, who was beautiful like Lena Horne, but she'll cut you if you mess with one of her kids, she'll cut you. I never had any thought that I wasn't as good as anybody when I walked in a room. I knew I was as good as any man in that room. And listen, my dad said, you can't be black, you are black. We're talking about Black History Month. First off, I believe there's only one race, that's the human race. I believe all this other stuff is stuff of this world. We live in this world, but we are not of this world. But my mom kept me in check and also said, you're not better than anybody in that room either. You're not better than anybody. You think you're fine, and just because you can run fast and you can catch a ball or you're good looking, you're not better than anybody. So they gave me that humbleness and that confidence from the very early age. In college, I played for a guy, as I said, Frank Kush, and really super successful, like a 750 winning percentage, 12-0, beat Nebraska in the Fiesta Bowl, 1975. I got to let people know that we did used to be something. Played with a lot of guys. Mike Haynes is in the NFL all-time 100, top 100 Hall of Fame, a lot of all-pros, a lot of guys who played in the pros. But here I am there. I was widely recruited. So one of my questions, I'm very curious about people. I'll give you a great question. I'll give everybody in the audience a great question. Describe your life in 3 movies. One of my movies is Remember the Titans. That was my high school. One of my movies is Blindside, because I was recruited by damn near every college coach in the country was coming to my house. My dad was in Korea, at the time, but they were all coming to my house. Coach, and the third one is Brian's Song, because my eventual roommate at Arizona State was my arch enemy in my high school in El Paso, Texas. And then we found out we're both going to Arizona State, and we're like, well, we're roommates. So we're the only black-white roommate on campus. Not on campus, on the football team. So my coach, and I was the kind of kid that if I dropped the ball, the coach was just like, give him the ball again. But Coach Kush expected perfection from the moment you stepped on that field in practice. If a ball touched you, you better catch that ball. You can't, if it touched you anywhere, you better catch it. You better not jump off sides. You need to cut your pattern at 15 if it's 15, not 14 and a half. And he motivated. I wouldn't necessarily wish it on anyone, but we were the strongest tempered steel. We went through the highest heat. He motivated by negative reinforcement and physicality. So here's a guy, if I dropped the ball and jumped offside, literally would whack me across the head. And he broke a lot of guys. At camp, we practiced 3 times a day when we went up to camp. There was guys in the first week that were high school All-Americans walking down the hill. I'm out of here. Mm-hmm. So here's a guy, slapped me upside the head, played with the varsity as a freshman, getting my butt kicked all the time, didn't suit up for the first 4 home games, traveled for the first 4 games, didn't suit up for the first 4 home games. He'd kick me down. I'd do something. He'd kick me down to the freshman team. I'm telling people on the team, I'm not suiting up. Second year I was redshirted, and I'll try and shorten this. Third year I decided I'm starting. I don't care what happens. I'm starting. And they sent us to someone that, in fact, the coach, my coach, he almost broke me too. I was so uncertain, Chris and Suzanne, that I was a wide receiver and I didn't want him to throw me the ball. Because I thought I might drop that ball. He's going to beat the hell out of me. And my coach, he looked and sounded like the devil incarnate. And they sent us to a sports psychologist who taught us the power of visualization and affirmation. And I started, and they said, there's no difference between you actually doing an action or visualizing it with full, vivid, living color in your mind. Your body didn't know the difference. So when it came time to do it, you would do it. So I started visualizing all my patterns. I could feel the air, the heat. I could smell the grass. I could see the vivid colors. I could see the dastardly DB in front of me. I started running those images of my different patterns on the way to class, waiting in line at lunch, on the way to the stadium. And I started affirming those things. I had a little 3x5 index card. I drew a picture of the ball on the card down to the nipples. Wide receiver, Sun Devil, number 81, catch, fast, courageous, score. 4.4 was my time in the 40 on grass. 3.2 was my grade point average. And my life changed. It didn't take 10 days. I became the captain of my ship, the master of my soul. I knew I controlled my destiny. I believe that your faith in your God, your love, your ability to do something is nothing unless you had a true question of faith, until someone made you ask or something made you think, can I do this? And he made me look in my heart, deep in my heart. And I looked deep in my heart, and excuse my language, I said, I'm a bad wide receiver. You ain't taking this from me. And I've applied that many times in my life. I applied it when I re-engineered myself out of IT into the world of financial wellness. So, and that bond that we have, all the guys who went through that, is unbreakable. So anyway, that's what fortified me and gave me the courage to make a change at the tender young age of 57.
So Glenn, I played sports too, and sports. It's interesting. Sports is sometimes a catalyst, and also sometimes a obstacle for others. So, question for you: it's always a dream with a deadline, because there are no 60-year-old wide receivers out there. There may be, but just not in the back, not playing it. So my question for you is, let's fast forward the tape to 2022, right? And you observe the young, aspiring sports young guys now, and now you have NIL, and now you have, the changing world of sports. You have the world in between there where everyone got a trophy, and, no one could say anything, that could hurt anyone's feelings, and compared to where you can. So where's the happy medium? Let me ask a perspective of someone who went through the fire, who understands what it takes to exceed in let's call it a hostile environment, and in a challenging, personally and professional way, to now where it's different, right? So what would you say, because there's some things that happened to you wouldn't, if you were coaching today, you wouldn't do. There's some things that you would do. So where is that happy medium that exists? And I mentioned this because I think advisors now, they get into the business with the idea that, we like all the things it'll be when we win. But when it comes down to it, I believe there still are the basic fundamentals that exist that you have to figure out along the way. So let me just throw that back to you. What are some of the things that you see that are similar in today's kind of even sports world or financial service, whatever it may be, competitive world, and then some of the things that are completely different, right? And then your perspective on those, good, bad, or indifferent.
Well, sir, you played at the highest level. I remember seeing you, okay? I remember seeing you well before I knew you. You played in the show. Yeah, there's no 60-year-old wide receivers, but I can tell you in my heart of hearts, I'm still the best wide receiver you've never seen. And nobody can dispute that, okay? And I say, if you think I'm wrong, just look at my seed. My daughter looks like she looks like Layla Ali. She's beautiful, but she boxes, and she became a mad athlete. My oldest son played basketball in college. My youngest son played football in college. He started at Michigan wearing the number 1, finished at Cal, and was in the Chiefs camp this year, got hurt and waved through the injury. So I say, just look at my seed. But that's a great question. There is a documentary that you may have seen, both of you, Chris and or Suzanne. It's called Basketball: A Love Story. It was done by ESPN. It's like a 10-episode, documentary on the history of basketball from the beginning. It's fascinating, and as you know, sports and music reflect society a lot and help change society. And one of the things I got out of that, many things, but it's changed now when you talk about NIL and that whole thing. Latrell Sprewell changed everything when he grabbed his coach around his head. Okay, because pushing back at a coach was like something you never did. By the way, I thought about leaving Arizona State when my buddies were leaving, but I never quit anything, and I never knew that it would necessarily be different any place else. So I didn't know if I might go someplace else, it might be the same thing. This is what it is. By the way, I called the colonel one day and I said, Dad, this guy's beating the crap out of me. The colonel never laid a hand on me. Different story with my mom, but the colonel never laid a hand on me. And he said, does he beat the other boys? And I said, yeah. And you know what the colonel said? Well, that's all he said. I said, okay, Dad, I got it. I got you. So what I learned, basketball, a love story. And you know what? All coaches are crazy. They're all crazy. It's just a matter what degree of craziness and how often they get crazy. But coaching is like playing when you're coaching the team. You're in the game. But I learned this. Players do want to be coached up. They do want to be pushed. People in financial services should want to be coached up. They should be able to take criticism and not take it emotionally and take it constructively and learn from it. If it's true, take it constructively. If it's not true, let it roll off your back. But I learned that a coach can coach as hard as he or she wants, as long as the player knows you're doing it from a place of love. And there are coaches like, I'm a Miami Dolphin man since 72, the perfect season, my senior year in high school, when they went undefeated, and yours truly threw a halfback reverse pass on the last play of the game in front of 20,000 to my quarterback to win the game, come from behind. Mike McDaniel, you look at Mike McDaniel or Campbell at Detroit or some of these other coaches, or, who started it was Pete Carroll. You can be hard, but you can be encouraging and loving at the same time. You can still expect people to perform. My dad said, you can't be perfect. Don't strive to be perfect. Strive to excel consistently at what you do. And I don't think Mike McDaniel or Dan Campbell or some of these other, or Pete Carroll are less demanding. They demand a lot, but they come with all this beautiful love and positive energy. I think that's the median. And the last thing I'll say real quick, you mentioned the NIL. I think the NIL is well-intending and poorly implemented. Okay, because I never wanted for anything. And when I went to college, I went to class, which was not necessarily something that, helped me with my coach or, a lot of my teammates wouldn't. But I knew I was more than a football player. But I do know that there would be guys, they might steal a phone card or, do this or that, and get in trouble because they didn't have enough money to take their girl out for a movie or buy a meal on a Friday or Saturday night. And Marvin Miller, the great lawyer who argued the what we now know as free agentry, says either the owners get it or the players get it. Somebody gets it. So the NCAA got all the money. The players got none of the money. I believe they should get some, but the way it's implemented, where guys are driving Rolls Royces up to campus, to me, it's divisive, because if I'm the guy that comes from a place where I don't have enough money at the end of the month to do anything, the guy's driving up in his, in his Bentley, there's something wrong with that, to me. So anyway, my answer to the happy medium is that there is one, and it can be coming from, I believe in positive reinforcement more than I do in certainly over negative reinforcement.
So
I will say that I do think that there's such a fear now for people to have those high standards and hold people accountable to them. Like I agree completely, because there's such the fear of like the cancel culture and the whole thing. And it's become, that's why I think so many people love NAIFA, that we're all based on meritocracy. Like they want it to be based on meritocracy and earn it, not just given, right? And that kind of piece of it is important, but it's a fine line nowadays. It's tough.
Mm-hmm.
When I noticed, Glenn, I respectful. I noticed that you still call your dad Colonel, right? When you refer to him as Colonel, can you share with us the kind of the mental piece of that? Is it the idea that you still? Well, is the idea you see him as a leader? Is the idea is that because you saw others respect him that way, that's how you share with us a little bit about that piece, if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, well, all those things, I just have such high regard, for him. And it was a different time. My dad never told me he loved me. He never told me he loved me, but I knew he loved me intensely. And he knew I loved him. And I was on his deathbed, and I said the words, "I love you." And I could, even though he couldn't respond verbally, I could see in his eyes, I do have great regard, certainly for him. And my mom, I don't want to, discount that at all. I mean, your mother generally is the one that shapes you and gives you your character, and that was definitely my mom, no question about it. But I just, I guess it is just a matter of, respect, because I did see people salute him all the time, and he never raised his voice to me even once. He never raised. Now, I didn't give him cause to. He's very. It was just very. He was a man who was very analytical. He was reasonable. I could change his mind. If he had a position, but I had an argument that was better, he would have his mind changed. So he taught me too, whoever's in the room who had the best idea, you should go with that, period. So, it's interesting that, that you, notice that. Not only, I guess, maybe too, it's just the kind of subliminal way to let people know where I come from. And I told you what that gave me about being able to hold my head high, period. And, in any instance. So, I'll give you an example. When I was in high school, my dad had a cherry 67 red convertible Mustang. And on Friday night after the game, and I had privilege of the car, if my curfew was 12:30, and I got in at 12:29, I could probably have the car on Saturday night. But if I got in at 12:31, I probably wouldn't get the car on Saturday night. So it's just a matter of, here's one of my other adages I tell the kids all the time. Do what you say you'll do, and be what you say you are. And I imagine you both are that type of person. In college, I'm the guy you call when you had we had these things called payphones, and you had a dime, you put it in there, you could call someone. I'd be the guy my teammates would call if they had one dime. And I'm not bragging. I just think that you hold yourself to a high standard. You hold the people that you surround yourself with to a high standard. That doesn't mean that you're looking to be critical and, I got you on that one. It means we hold each other to a high standard. and I set each other to a high standard. If I'm not up to standard, you need to be able to tell me that I'm not up to standard, and I need to be able to deal with it. So I guess it's an interesting observation, and that's my answer.
So let's see if we can go a little bit further. Obviously, you've had some success, but you joined NAIFA. You mentioned at the age of 50, you joined the association. You joined the calling, the journey of financial services and financial well-being at the age of 57. However, you didn't just say, "Hey, I'm joining the industry." Looks like you joined NAIFA, and since then you've been part of kind of, let's call it, not just sitting on the sidelines, but you've had your hand up to kind of lead along the way. So share with us a little bit about your relationship, how you got into NAIFA, and then a little bit about, I looked, if people haven't looked you up yet, the NAIFA Spotlight, there's a spotlight on you, and that you serve some important roles in the NAIFA leadership opportunity. One is the president-elect of Los Angeles NAIFA. So share with us a little bit about that journey and why you said, "Hey, you know what? I can't just sit on the sidelines. I need to be not only part of this, but I need to be part of leadership." Because we always ask about, listen, you can't lead from the back. You gotta step up and lead others. So what inspired you to do those things, and why not just come into financial service, make money, and do your thing? And again, your goal was not to have employees, so now it's just you.
Well, that doesn't mean I have people that surround me that help me do what I need to do. Team, I definitely believe in a team. Team is more powerful than an individual. Okay, absolutely. So you need a great team and support, and supporting, services, around you. I'm actually the past president of NAIFA LA. So I served, my role there. I am on the board now. You have to temper this a little bit too, because every place I go, people tap you on the shoulder, and say, "Hey, I was on the board of the kids' elementary school. I was the Booster Club president for high school. I served on the board of the Business College at Arizona State. I served on the general alumni at large at Arizona State." So again, kind of temper that between, being productive. But it's always about giving back, because nothing here can you take with you. You can't take anything here that you can touch, see, or feel. I believe that your spirit is eternal, and it's about how many people did you touch, along the way, and how many people utter. That's why is Siri talking to me? I don't know why. How many people you touch, along the way, and that. I alluded to it earlier, that things of this world, opinions of others, opinions from others, tribal thinking, whether it's your religion, your country, your race, or whatever, material, possessions. I'm striving to live at a higher level of self-actualization, where I'm at peace with where I'm at today, peace with the past, peace with whatever's coming, peace with my present station. That's the highest level of self-actualization. And I'm not afraid. I have had some people very dear to me leave this earth, but I'm still, they're still with me. So yeah, I got into NAIFA, got tapped on the shoulder, did my thing. It's a great group of people. And again, it's just not about, it's not about, yes, we all want to live handsomely, but that's not what it's about. It's about doing good for others, and in doing good for others, then, you do good for yourself, as well.
So you still sit on the board, and you are an advisor to NAIFA from the front. So what aspects of your coach do you still utilize in those situations?
Well, sports has helped shape me from I'd imagine from the first time you saw basketball, you had a basketball in your hand, you had an affinity to it. And the first time I saw football, I was about 4. Mom took me to the park. I said, "Oh, I'm playing football. That's what I want to do." And so it is ingrained in me. And I told you how my life was changed in college when we saw the sports, psychologist. So I am, I believe, very good at sharing analogies when it comes to talking to people about their financial wellness. So I have 2 specialties. I have one specialty where I work with people, teaching them how to play the whole game. Most people play half the game. Half the game is accumulation. The other half is distribution. Without a well-founded plan for distribution, you're only playing half the game. A lot of people do a great job in the first half and are not mindful of the second half. In fact, I espouse you should prepare for post-game. The post-game is after the game, when you're not of this earth, and your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren say, "Papa was a Rolling Stone. Papa, we're still benefiting from Papa." So I teach people how to play the whole game. I use a lot of analogies when it comes to instruments. I use analogies like offense and defense, stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, real estate, business, cryptocurrency, all those things. Those are offense. They can generate one way to get income, which is the ultimate goal for all of us and things that we acquire, but it has to be off the withdrawal rate. The withdrawal rate is not guaranteed. And then there's defense. Now, I was a wide receiver. I want to throw the ball every play. I want to throw it downfield. But even I know that there's been no great team, no great military, no great leader, no great company president that didn't understand the tenets of offense and defense. Insurance and annuities are contractual. They're guaranteed. I know what they're going to do. You can't win a world championship, a Super Bowl without like a Ray Lewis in the middle. Yeah. So that is one example. And then in my other specialty, I turn lemons into lemonade. So I'm now in my second marriage. I was married for 24 years. I had to muster up my courage for that too, because just like the business that I told you about, that I had to go tell my partners that I loved, that I had to go a different route, or else I had to cut off my arm in order to live. I felt the same way about the circumstance that I was in my marriage. And one of the toughest things I ever had to do, and it hurt and it's painful. But I felt, unless I do this, I'm not living my life like this anymore. I felt like I exhausted everything that I could exhaust and make it work. And that whatever you do, if you feel like you've done everything you can to make it work and you realize that it doesn't, or you don't think it will, you got 2 choices. You can stay in bondage or pain, or you can have some courage and have a little, I'm not saying we'll be without some pain, it will be, but you can have some courage to change your life. So my second specialty is that as of a CDFA, I'm a certified divorce financial analyst. That means I help people understand how to equitably negotiate the dissolution of the marital enterprise. And moreover, I help them understand I take into account taxes, risks, liquidity, and income. So I answer the question, what it means to you. Lawyers can advise legally what you're entitled to, but they can't value all assets properly, and they don't take those things into consideration. So what I do is I also give you a glimpse. This is what your life looks like on the day you sign your settlement, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road. I turn lemons into lemonade with that. And just in the same, I have many analogies that I can use to explain concepts and strategies and whatnot, using either a sports analogy or a life experience analogy, having been around the sun, ding, ding, today, 69 times.
Very interesting. So we're in the middle of Black History Month, and sounds like you've been around some successful and aspiring minority and diverse and Black professionals, leaders, coaches, brothers, sisters, whatever it may be for yourself, share with us a little bit about your perspective and your connection with Black history, specifically in this month. I mean, we get a unique opportunity to celebrate this month, but it goes beyond this month. So would you take a minute or so and kind of give us kind of a reflection on your perspective in Black History Month?
That's interesting. That's a great question. I mentioned earlier, look, I told you my dad said, son, you can't be Black, you are Black. You can't be Black, you are Black. And because, again, the colonel and people saluted him, and I went to school and I was good in school and I had good diction and whatnot. In college, some of my brothers be like, what are you with that, what are you with that whiteboard for? And so a lot of the guys would tell him, what are you with that, for? And why are you going to class? Oh, you're not talking, Black. What is fucking talking Black? What is Black? Black comes in all shades. What's kind of interesting? It seems like anything other than Black is white. So I don't ignore the plight, the experience of Black men and women in America, and in the world. But I also am not limited, as I mentioned. I walk in the room. I don't walk in the room thinking, hey, I'm the only Black man in this room, which happens a lot. I'm walking in the room like I'm a man in this room like anyone else. Why do I have to be defined or act different by my Blackness? So it goes both ways. You can't expect people to be tolerant if you are intolerant. You can't, to me, expect for others to accept you if you're unaccepting. And I'm not looking for an apology for what has happened or really reparation. All I'm looking for people to do is to acknowledge of the systematic, categorical, institutional, things that have been put upon us. I'm a proud Black man, but I'm a man first. And I am intolerant of intolerance from anybody. But, it's an interesting question. We just celebrated Martin Luther King's birthday. And I had a business when Martin Luther King birthday became a national holiday. I had a little computer business. I had 9 people working for me. That's about 30. And it's a national holiday. I believe it should be recognized. Absolutely. But when it first started happening, I said, you know what would probably make my dad was alive, but what would probably make the people before me most proud was to see a young Black man who had a business and employing 9 other people in his business. I'm working today. And I generally work. This year was the first year that I can remember that I said, you know what? I'm taking the day off today. So I just wish, and there's a clip, I saw a clip on Marley, which I went to Jamaica. I can't believe, this man changed the world as much as he did coming from where he came from. He said, I have but one wish is that someday people would, be able to learn to live together without, this divisiveness and opinions and whatnot. So every day, Black history or not Black history, because most of the imprint on me is in Texas, because I grew up, saying yes, sir, no, sir, and whatnot. And because I grew up, if I walk by you on the street, I'm going to greet you. I don't want anything from you. I think we should acknowledge one another that, hey, we're both here, just an acknowledgement. And that's all that I want. So I'm 60 friggin' 9, excuse my language. And during the George Floyd thing and the riots in the street, I remember being in the shower and usually every morning I have a daily playlist of 4 or 5 songs. I have one for every day of the month. That's going to get me up and going. And one of the songs was Black Man by Stevie Wonder. It says, he says, the ground where we stand, he says, was the ground where we stand, was a red man. Oh, there's a rivers. I'm missing the lyrics, but he talks about incandescent light was given to give sight by a white man. I'm so sorry. I usually have them right at my tips. I'm forgetting the lyrics, but basically it talks about all the different contributions from all the different colors of people in this, that helped this land great. And I believe in this land. I grew up believing in this land. I do. But the key, the refrain, the chorus says, we pledge allegiance all our life to the magic colors, red, blue, and white. But we pledge allegiance all our life to the magic colors, red, blue, and light. But unless liberty is given to all that have helped defend, this world was made for all men. And I was listening to that in the shower. This world was made for all men. And I'm thinking about growing up and living all the places that I lived. And every place I lived, I would have to fight. I wouldn't look for a fight, but someone would fight me. And every place I lived, I've been chased and called that word, including California, when I got here as a young man and thought I was liberated, right? And I started crying in the shower because I was just so downhearted about, wow. And at the time, maybe I was 65. I'm 65 or whatever, and I'm still dealing with this, and my kids got to deal with it. And then I came out of the shower, and, my wife consoled me. And then I was okay the next day, but I choose to remain eternally optimistic. One of my mentors, Dr. Wayne Dyer, I imagine you've heard of him, one of the most written, published speakers that is like a spiritual self-actualization, type of, leader. Says the way you change the way, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And what you look for, you will find. If you are looking for someone or something or injustices, that's what you're going to find. But if you look for the good, so I just try and look for the good, in everybody, and not allow them to, drag me down, to things, as I keep referring to, as things of this world that bring you down, because it doesn't make, any sense. So I'm a little bit, I know I'm giving you this real roundabout answer. Morgan Freeman says there shouldn't be a Black History Month because Black history is our history. It should be all the time. Why do we need a month for it? So I have, and here's a nugget for one of the questions I think you guys, thought you might ask, what you would give, someone younger, and where do you get your business? You know what? if I'm standing next to the line and you for 5 minutes, we're going to talk for a minute. I'm not going to talk your head off, but I'm going to ask you, hey, what did you learn new? Or, what brought you here? Or, when you're not doing what you do for your family and your business, what do you do for you? Or if I see music, hey, what's your latest musical discovery? That's how I get my new music. So one of my pieces of advice would be just to have a genuine curiosity for your fellow man without judgment. And woman, you gotta be careful everything you say now. Look in a person's eyes, not their pocketbook, not what they're driving, not the clothes that they're wearing. And just have a conversation without intention, without somewhere you're trying to maneuver, because it'll come to you. Anyway, that's what I have to say on that.
Suzanne.
Yep.
Perhaps we lost Suzanne.
My dog is saying it's time for us to wrap up.
It is. It
The
is.
dog says we got to go to we got to go to a lightning round, Glenn. We got to go to the lightning round. Not
Okay.
lightning as in how fast you can run the 40. Not lightning round, right? This is lightning round where people will, after this they'll Google you. They'll say, okay, who's this young man, Glenn? What's he about? Well, that type of thing. But the one thing we don't know is we may know about you, or we may know of you. We don't know about you. So this objective is kind of just a series of questions. So the first thing that comes to mind is how this works. It's about a minute long, not even a minute long. So we'll be quick. We'll wrap up. But the goal is for other people at NAIFA, they see you, they'll be like, oh, okay, I feel like I know him, right? Even though they may not know you, they want to feel like they do. So that is the purpose of this round. And so it's really easy. Whatever comes top of mind, that's what you say. Don't overthink it. It's pretty easy. Like they used to do this. It's called a hot potato when we were in school with sports, and whoever held the ball last had to run sprints, right? So this is how that goes. And we're not going to ask you questions that you don't know the answer to. Okay, so they're going to be easy questions. Like, I'll give you an example. One here. What position did you play in college?
Oh, I'm the best wide receiver you've never seen, my brother.
See, you knew the answer to that, right? Wide receiver, right? Yep. Okay, so we'll go with that. Okay, so with that being said, we'll move forward. Favorite food?
Oh, favorite food? Jeez.
Now you got to know his wife isn't a master cook.
My wife is a crazy cook. Yeah, I'm going to say her Italian chili.
Italian chili. Got it.
Or second, a big second would be Ciappino. Go ahead.
Next thing. What is it that the one lesson you learned from your dad, Colonel?
I should already do what you say you'll do and be what you say you are. And if you do what you say you'll do and you are what you say you are, everybody be happy with you, and moreover, you'll be happy with yourself.
Mentors. The one mentor that you would say changed your life or had the largest impact on your life?
The largest impact was my dear friend who left this earth, Bo Warren, Clarence Warren, went to Gardena High School in LA. He was my host when I went to Arizona State. He was the DB in front of me that, I had to, go against every day. And until, about a year, he beat me up every day. And then one day I got little brother mad and I said, we're fighting today. I don't care what happens. We are fighting today. I don't care what happens. And that's the day I became a Sun Devil. But he was one of the most courageous, vibrant, born leader, intelligent, unbelievable, guy just to be around. And he came to our house, and I was divorced, and I was living with now my wife, and I'm very deliberate. I've always been very deliberate. And he was dying. He had bone cancer throughout his body. The doctor told him, son, you have the life expectancy of a milk carton. And he told the doctor, you practice medicine, right, doc? And the doc said, yeah. And he said, well, you better keep practicing because you ain't never met it like me. And he lived another 5-7 years. And he came to our house. He ate the food. He saw how I looked at her. He saw how he looked at me. She looked at me. He walked me to my little office at the house, little separate office. He said, Crawford, when are you going to marry this girl? I said, Bo, I'm real deliberate. And my brother, who is dying, who I love, when are you going to marry this girl? And that's the first time I said, I got another chapter in my life. And to close it, I'd go, another thing about me, I played guitar. Started playing guitar again, like at 40. I said, if I get better, I'll get another guitar. Now I got 26 guitars, okay? And I would take my guitar and play for him. And when I went, he was in hospice. He had a gleam in his eye and a smile in his face and a big old love in his heart. And he was teaching me. He was big brothering me even then on how to prepare for things. And he wasn't fronting. He wasn't acting. So anyway, that's the biggest mentor on me in my life.
Your proudest moment in this industry so far?
Geez, there's been so many. My proudest moment in the industry.
Just give us one.
I guess it wouldn't be necessarily doing a case. I've done cases and I've helped people with things. It's probably at like, I don't know, 63, 64. I got my Series 65. So, I could do stock portfolio management and, passing that test while working, at 63 or whatever was like, so I would say that's probably the proudest thing.
Got it. Last thing. You have the ear of NAIFA Nation. If you could tell somebody in our industry today about why do they want to be a part of NAIFA and a part of this industry, what would you tell them?
All you got to do is look at the Super Bowl yesterday and saying it's about being a part of something that's bigger than you. And that you are benefiting by the great work that NAIFA does, advocating on behalf of the people we serve and the people who serve in this industry, whether you're in NAIFA or not. So it's kind of like, hey, when you go over your uncle's house and everybody's supposed to bring something and, and then there's that one person doesn't bring anything, but they eat 3 or 4 plates. You want to come to the picnic, you got to bring something with you. So to me, if you're going to be in the industry, simply, be all on it, all about it, all over it, not halfway.
Wonderful.
Love that. Yeah.
All right, Suzanne.
Yep.
Glenn, I mean, I can't say anything more than that. I think Glenn kind of said be exactly who you say you're going to be and do what you say you're going to do, right? And we call on the members to step up and be a part of that in our ever quest to continue to grow and develop as a professional organization.
Thank you both so much for having me. I had fun with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Suzanne, do you have anything before I close this?
Hey, I love you both. Thank you so much for doing this. Love you, NAIFA Nation. And everybody have a great Valentine's week this week.
All right.
Take care of the ones that you love. Yes.
I'll close this up. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to Advisor Today's podcast. You can find Glenn out there. He's probably not that hard to. He's the fastest wide receiver that you may not know, but tune into the podcast. Take some notes. I actually took some good notes today. You heard a lot of good things from him today. Go back and relook at this and re-listen to this podcast. But thanks for tuning in to Advisor Today podcast, where we uplift, promote, and support the growth and development of advisors around NAIFA Nation. We look forward to seeing you in the next week or so. Good luck. Have a great day.
Thanks for joining us for NAIFA's Advisor Today podcast series. Make sure to subscribe to get future episodes. And if you're interested in coming on the show, let us know.